radical feminist like myself, you're basically not allowed to talk about any of this stuff in the mainstream media. This issue is typically framed as being a fight between the big bad Christian right versus a small group of marginalized people. That is not what's happening. What is happening, in fact, is that all of trans, if you like, really is a top-down, heavily funded, industry-driven movement to abolish the material reality of sex. The whole concept of gender identity is incredibly homophobic because in order to protect the rights of same-sex attracted people, including lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals, we have to be able to acknowledge material reality of sex. And I think it's very important for people to understand that although it is typically painted as progressive to support, quote, trans, in fact, the entire movement is the most authoritarian, politically regressive, sexist, and homophobic agenda I have encountered in my lifetime, and it's fully embraced by the Democratic Party and by the cultural left.
Jill, Kamala, Doug, our entire administration sees you for who you are.
U.S. citizens will be able to choose X as the gender marker on their passport.
If you look more closely at that list of things that Soros is funding, or if you look at the list of things that are funded by the Arcus Foundation, so this is a foundation set up by a gay man named John Stryker, and Arcus is worth billions of dollars.
Philanthropy in a strategic way, and to be strategic, you have to have data.
But when you look closely at them, they have nothing whatsoever to do with actual gay rights advocacy. I looked at their 2022 funding grants. Every single one of them focuses on, quote, trans and or queer. Martin Rothblatt was born Martin. He is a multimillionaire and he's married to a woman, and he once spent a couple $1 million creating a robot replica of his wife.
I like to beautify. I want to leave the world a more beautiful place for my presence in it.
He has created an organization called Terrasem, which talks about encapsulating human thought and creating these things that he calls mindware.
Once you upload all of your thoughts, that is called a mind file,
which is online in the cloud data points about who we are as human beings. And he once published a book called From Transgender to Transhuman. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Endocrine Society, all of which encourage the use of puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones in minors. They all have very close ties to the pharma industry and to the biotech industry. Feminist professor Janice Raymond put out a book in 1979 called The Transsexual Empire, in which she essentially predicted everything that was going to happen. In 1994, she reprinted it with a new introduction. And in her 1994 introduction to the Transsexual Empire, she talked about the word transgender. And she warned everybody in 1994 that this word was going to completely change society, to further entrench sex stereotypes. What our society ought to be doing is accepting people who do not conform to sex stereotypes, including people who are same-sex attracted. Society should just accept that. It really shouldn't have a problem with violating sex stereotypes. That should be a good thing. But it's a very different thing to create this new word, transgender, and pretend that nonconformity with sex stereotypes needs to be medicalized. Womanhood already is being erased in society by the use of language like chest feeding or menstruator, the absolute worst, black earthing bodies. It's terrible, which is why I think it's very important both for radical feminists to keep speaking out in support of women and girls as a sex class, and also work with conservative-leaning women's organizations. Because at the end of the day, regardless of political opinion, women are women, and we're going to need to stand up for ourselves and for each other.